is up, guys? This is Alex from First Figures.
Hey there everyone, this is Chuckles.
Who do we have here? The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess, True Form, Midna!
That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. Now, there was a debate beforehand on what exactly we should be calling her.
Right.
And there's a couple of different choices out there. The first one is True Form Midna.
True Form Midna.
Midna's True Form.
Midna's True Form.
Spoiler alert, by the way, here, guys. Or Twilight Midna.
Twilight
Midna, or of course referred to as the Twilight Princess, because of course this is who it is. The name of the actual game refers to Midna. She is the Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
But this is something that the fans of The Legend of Zelda have been wanting for a long time, and they've always said, when is TFM coming? And TFM has always been referred to as the word for True Form Midna. So ultimately, True Form Midna is what we here at First Figures have been referring to her the whole time, and that's what we'll be referring to her throughout this video.
Indeed.
So this is part of our making of documentaries that we do on YouTube Talks.
Yeah. Okay. So guys, if this is your first time watching this video, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel first of all. And basically, we will go through all the ins and outs of this True Form Midna. So we'll go through all the measurements, the questions that you guys asked in the First Figures Official Collectors Club. So please join that as well. So that's on Facebook.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions with regards to any future products, the next Zelda piece in the line, make sure that you join the club, and then when the launch comes, I will make a post in the club, and then you guys can ask us questions and we'll answer them in these type of videos.
And once you watch these videos, you have a bit more of an understanding of some of the design processes and thought processes going behind things such as the pose and some details that may not be quite so clear if you sort of didn't listen to the documentary. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. Okay.
Right, so let's start right off then.
Well, straight in there, no messing about.
Give her a spin.
Well, can we first talk about the fact that we have a middle-sized turntable?
Right, yes, that's right.
And
that's fancy.
That was pretty fancy. Hit me up if you want one, guys.
And it's quite speedy as well. Look at that. Look how she spins. Can you tell? Is there a speeder just for this?
You know, you can tell the other way.
And it makes noise as well.
And
that's
quite loud, actually.
That is quite loud.
That is even faster than that. No, that's the fastest it goes. Well, let's slow her down. That's the slowest speed. We'll keep it at that, right?
Keep it nice. Slow pace. We don't want her flying off the table.
Boys and their toys.
Yeah, there you go, guys. So, right, let's get some questions out of the way. Right, first question from Anna Tikikata. That's right, yeah?
Yep.
Watson, yeah. What inspired you to create this statue? And you can't just say the game, because that's a given.
So, this is something that we've been working on for a long time. But, the game came out, it's going back, 2011? 2000, something like that, 2010, 2011? And the original game, right? And what's quite funny is, of course, that we've been in this company since 2003. First Figure started up and started working with Nintendo in 2006 and what have you. Back then there was literally only 3 people in the company, and it was myself, my partner John, and Kanako, it's my wife, right? And she would always, English is not her first language, but she would always take a role of a customer service role, and she would always forward me messages just to sort of check her English, to make sure when she was dealing with the customers, online questions from dealing with the shop, she would often forward stuff to me, pretty much just to sort of check the the English and anything sort of like that. And it's also important to understand what people are asking about and what have you. And there were quite a few people were requesting this. Oh, True Form Midna, the game's just come out, we really love her. Is that something that you consider? And the response, I can look back over the responses that we gave back then, and we were saying something like, you know what, she doesn't get much screen time, maybe something in the future, but probably not, is the original thought back then. This is around about 2011 now. And so that was quite interesting to sort of see how over time the popularity of this character got bigger and bigger and bigger. And what really amplified that, Chocks, really is got to be the fact that we have this Facebook page, and this is the Facebook page, I think it was 2009. I can actually remember the Facebook page was, the first thing that we actually launched on that Facebook page was, I think, Zant from the Twilight Princess line. And I can remember people were then beginning to ask about Truth or Midna then, this is 2009. And then through our emails, it's coming up 2010, 2011, people sort of are beginning to email us about this sort of things. 2009, I might be wrong with that, for the timing. But certainly the page, a lot of people kept in the comments asking about Truth or Midna. Now, a Facebook page, a company Facebook page is very one-directional, Chocks. You know, we use it to give the news about what's coming up. Here's a post, and what we want to talk about, what we want to, you know, the topic that we talk about, that's what we put there. And then yes, we get a few people in the visitors post making some suggestions or what have you, but mainly it is about us doing a very one-way directional, you know, message. Now, we've definitely seen some people requesting Truth or Midna, but it wasn't quite until we set up the Facebook Collectors Club. And this was 2016, Chocks. January of 2016. Here we are, over 2 years from that date. And I mean, you know yourself, the difference between a Facebook group and a Facebook page is anything goes with a Facebook group. It's very much a two-way thing where we can write stuff and we can post stuff, but it's just as much, if not more, about the community and them coming to us, coming with suggestions. And tell me about the amount of noise we were getting for Truth or Midna over that time period.
Sure.
Do you remember, Chocks?
Yeah, definitely. It's like you can't miss it. Every other day, there's always going to be people requesting Truth or Midna and other Zelda characters as well.
Yeah, but definitely there was a lot of promotion, a lot of discussion about Truth or Midna that really became just too hard to ignore, to be honest with you, Chocks. You know, it became, as I said, it started with the emails, and then it went to the Facebook page because that was the only way to communicate with us back then.
And then we also reviewed it during one of our Christmas shows.
Right, and that
amplifies the whole continuity.
Sure, and that, you know, that again, as you said, Chocks, that was 2016 Christmas sneaks, I believe.
So,
2016 Christmas sneaks, and that was the first time we actually officially said that she was definitely coming to the Twilight Princess line, and a lot of people were very happy about that because they felt that they had really promoted this character and rallied for this character so much that we listened and therefore created the character. And they are absolutely 100% correct. The fans of the game really pushed us and motivated us to make this character because, you know, it's really clear. She's literally in it for less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And when we make these characters, we really want them to be hard-hitting, sort of really resonate with the fan base. And if it wasn't for the people rallying for her, Chocks, we wouldn't be sitting here today. And you know, that's the truth. That's the truth. And it's always something we've always said, Chocks, which is the fact that the power of the club and the power of the community has the power with which to help influence the product choices that we go to make. And so thank you so much for rallying for her, to make us pay attention, to make us sit up and take notice. And here we are, guys. So when Anna asks what inspired us to create this statue, the answer is you guys.
Wow, old style, like text messaging, but it's from email format before
Absolutely.
Before Facebook.
Exactly right.
Yeah. All right, next question from Alessio Bucci. Truth or Midna was supposed to go up for pre-order in Q2 2017. After 1 year, it's her time to shine. What changes did you make in this year?
Okay, well, there have been quite a few different tweaks that we've done for her over the time period, and I can't begin to tell you how many times we've started and restarted. One of the things I can say is we painted her the wrong color. When we first made her, actually her skin tone was a slightly bluer color, and we got quite far down the line before I finally sort of paid attention, and I just sort of went past. I don't know why I didn't sort of think about it. Was wait a sec, guys, does she actually match the same color as Imp Midna? Because we made a Wolf Link and Imp Midna, we'll just call it Midna on Wolf Link, and she's already in the marketplace, and it's very important that they all match up in the colors. So we got quite a bit far down the line before I was like, oh wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. I had to go back and tweak that, and we certainly found that she was very, very, very challenging to make. Definitely very, very difficult to make, and we'll go a bit more into detail into that a little bit later on. But it definitely was a case where we had to really, really push on some of those details. But there's something else, Chocks, that I really wanted to say. Why we really did take the time before going to launch her in Q2 2017. That's when we said we were originally going to do it.
Yep.
So what's different? Well, one of the things that happened was, just in case you guys don't know, we released a item called, it's our best ever selling item, and that is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask from obviously Majora's Mask. It was actually the life-size prop.
Life-size prop.
Now, the thing about that was it was initially put up for pre-order in January 2017.
Yep.
2017. And it was indeed one of the Christmas sneaks we'd done that 2016. So 2017, sort of a couple of days later, we actually put this up, and it turned out to be our best-selling piece ever, which is, thank you so much for the support on that. But one of the things that was different, Chocks, is we actually put that piece up for pre-order, but ultimately there was quite a big change between then. Of course, if you guys remember what happened, originally, Chocks, you remember it was a smooth surface kind of mask, and then ultimately what happened was we went to submit it to go into production, but actually we had some request changes from Nintendo. Now what usually happened was we would submit some pictures and go, hey guys, this is the changes. Oh, sorry, this is the character. Do we have permission at least to go to pre-order and at least have the wording on there, which would have been subject to final approval, which is kind of standard, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was, unfortunately, we were requested to completely add a lot of texture to Majora's Mask, and it sort of slowed things down a little bit, which is, until you understand it, it's a much better piece for it, much more accurate. Really happy that we did that. But one thing is quite clear: we really, really wanted to make sure that when we make a piece like, a Zelda piece with all the kind of eyes that look at this, is one of our, if not the biggest line that we currently make. That we want to make sure that the time between pre-order and delivery is pretty straightforward and smooth. And the difference between this piece and the reason why we delayed that is we wanted to make sure that Nintendo signed off on it. There is no ifs or buts. What we normally do is, as I said, go out for pre-order and then pick that piece up and then give it to Nintendo, and then they will come back and say, okay, make a small changes here and there and here and there. And normally that's fine and we do that. But certainly with the club, Chocks, a lot more people asking every day, where is this product and all that sort of stuff. It becomes a little bit harder than a few people emailing back in the day, right? Oh, where's this piece? Oh, it's coming soon. But this is very, very a different scenario, right, Chocks?
They're instant when it's on social media now.
Right. All right. And we have to evolve with the times, and that means that when we put up, we wanted to make sure that when Truthful Midna went up for pre-order, that she was already approved by Nintendo to allow us to go to production when we wanted to, i.e. when the pre-orders were closed, we didn't have to take the piece, send it to them, and then they come back with the changes. And that's really the reason for Alessio's question. Why was she delayed for a year? Well, as I said, two parts. Difficult, kicked our butt for many, many months, but also wanted to make sure that we had approval from the big end to make sure that everything was smooth so we could go into production when we wanted to, because everything was already done. Make sense, Chocks?
Yeah, definitely. Right, next question from Miranda Sykes. How long have you had this project underway for?
Okay, so first of all, shout out to Miranda. She's a lovely admin in the group. So I know that, as I said to you earlier on, Chocks, emails, and then a lot of noise on the Facebook page, not group, but page. And then in October, 2015, October 2015, I actually sat down and said, you know what, shall we look into doing this? And October 2015, I had initial ideas, initial thoughts, initial pose concepts, initial ideas about, let's take this quite seriously. And that's the sort of first time I ever sort of thought about anything doing that. Fast forward to 2016, the January, so just a few months later, Chocks, we're talking about end of October 2015, and then we got November, December, January 2016. That's the start of the amplification of the request for True for Midna. Just within the space of a few months, we could really see that what we were seeing on the page was really being amplified in the club. And that's when I sort of said, okay, you know what, let's do it. Let's really do it. Of course, I had penciled in at that stage, but then when I could see that it was getting amplified even more in the club, I was like, okay, I'm feeling that this is something that the fans really, really want, despite her short screen time.
Yeah, in the game.
And that's the reason why we are here today. So the answer to Miranda's question is technically October 2015 is when I first, end of October, was when I first started sort of penciling in it and some basic ideas and some sort of really sort of thinking this is really something that we're going to make versus actually making it. So that's where we're at now.
All right then. Next question from Silvio Latuda. How did you decide which pose to go with her? Usually when regarding Zelda Nintendo, you guys are restricted to do official art only. Unfortunately, True for Midna lacked an official artwork when the game was released. How did you decide which pose was the winner, and how easy or hard was it to convince Nintendo to accept it? Greetings from Mexico.
First of all, that's really great to hear. Mexico is in the house. Thanks so much for joining, and that's really great to see that people all over the world celebrate in The Legend of Zelda and also sort of have heard about the club, etc. So that's great. I just wanted to. There's some uses. There's some words here that I want to sort of pay attention to. It's talking about the official art and restricted to. I think that's a bit of a red herring, a bit of a misconception, to be honest with you, Chocks.
Okay.
I want to sort of bring you back in a bit of history. Let's talk about the original Zelda pieces that we made back in the day, way back when, 2006, I believe it was. Do you remember what the first one was, Chocks?
No idea.
Fierce Deity Link, and that was followed by Skull Kid.
Right.
After that was Ocarina of Time Link, and of course, Fierce Deity Link and Skull Kid, they're both from Majora's Mask. Ocarina of Time Link, well, obviously, and then I believe the next one was Shake, off the top of my head, and one of the things is that was from a generation of N64 games where the character models themselves were very polygony, very low poly, low resolution, very angular, very, very different from the realization of the character art. Now, when we have these types of characters that they're very angular, it's very difficult for you to create a more HD version of it, because the way that it works is you have nothing to compare it to. When you look at Link and you play the game and you imagine what that character looks like in a full form, of course you don't believe that Link when was a child or when he's an adult looks angular in real life. You expect him to have some sort of roundness to him, like a human or an elf would look like, right? So the only thing that we could really work towards, Chocks, was the thing that was universally accepted to be the style of the character. So if you look at the official artwork for Fierce Deity Link, does it look polygonal? Does it look, like low resolution game files? The answer was no, of course not. It looks like beautiful 2D art. And likewise with Skull Kid, likewise with Ocarina of Time Link, etc. All of those characters, Chocks, they all look like beautiful 2D artworks. They look nothing like the in-game file. Totally makes sense. So when we say when Silvio says restricted to official artwork, well, the answer is actually no. We went for the official artwork because it was the universally approved, the universally accepted idea of the way the character should look like. So when I presented a character with a green hat on, with blonde hair, with a sword and a tunic, etc., people didn't go, oh, that just looks like some dude randomly wearing some clothes that looks like Link. It had to look like the artwork. Likewise, oh, who's this character looking at his hand with a hat on, and obviously that's Skull Kid. But people could see that what I didn't want people to say, oh, it looks like somebody cosplaying as. That's the worst thing that we could ever hear, is that, oh, it's just like someone's cosplaying at someone. Like, oh, that's not what we were obviously going for. So the 2D artwork that we used really was the universally accepted idea of what the character should look like, and that therefore was our goal. And as a result, we therefore went for that pose. It kind of went hand in hand. We weren't restricted to it, it just made sense to go with something that people would recognize, because the artwork was very selected back then. Moving forwards, when you look at something like future, if you look at the future games, the more recent games of Zelda, if you go into the Skyward Swords, or even Twilight Princess, you look at, of course, Breath of the Wild, there's tons of different movements and artworks and poses, so not artworks, so lots of different movements and in-game poses and all these sort of things that people could recognize. You don't have to be sort of more focused on an artwork. With regards to Silvio's question, because True Form Midna lacked an official artwork, because #spoiler if you sort of could see the official artwork, when it came to the pose, that really we weren't really worried about that, to be honest with you. Having said that, what we originally went for back in the day was actually some inspiration from the Hyrule Warriors version of True Form Midna, or in that it's called Twilight Midna, and she's sort of got her one leg forward and her hands on sort of like this,
side.
That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, that's in the vault, should I say, because when we initially went to Nintendo with this the concept, they were like, you know what? You really only see her at the very, very end, and it's a really, really key scene when you finally see her, and she's like, what? Say something. Am I so beautiful that you have no words, right? And it's like really, really strong impact when you first see her. You play as Imp Midna throughout the whole time, or at least you're Wolf Link, and then you etc. and you have a lot of interaction and time with Imp version of Midna. And then boom, at the end of this really long game, you see her for the first time. It has such an impact, and this really is, and she sort of lies on the ground, and then she gets up, and then she sort of comes back, and there you go. She turns her head over the shoulder, and that is the scene. This is the scene. This is the angle. This is the everything that you see when you first see her in her true form. And that was really, it made a lot of sense to be doing that, because she just doesn't get much screen time. It made sense to go for that, and that's what Nintendo requested, and we thought that was a great idea to go and make that so that it was much more tied within Twilight Princess rather than any other forms of her. And this is such an impactful scene, and made sense to highlight that. And definitely that's why.
Snapshot of that scene.
Boom. Yeah. An exact snapshot of that scene. You're absolutely right, Charles. So that's really why. That's sort of really the pose and how we came with that. And so for Sylvia's question again, there was no official artwork, but also having said that, we were actually quite restricted with regards to the amount of screen time she had, and therefore it made sense to have a pose of her like that. Okay? Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Alright, the next question from a Jonathan Jakubowski. How early on in the process was the decision to not use fabric?
Okay, so that's a great question, and that's going back old school for remembering this being part of the Twilight Princess line of 1/4 scale collectible statues, masterpiece line, right?
Oh yeah, I've read the description, masterpiece.
Master Arts line. It's been a while. Now, whilst we're talking, let's give that baby a little spin. Now, if you go back to the original one, the first one in the line was of course Zant, and Zant came with fabric clothing. and the entirety of the actual, you know, his cloth and his clothing, all that sort of stuff had that fabric furring, that fabric, I should say. The second in that line was, I think it might be Wolflink and Midna. Now there was nothing to do with fabrics on there. I mean, she is kind of naked, and so is Wolflink himself. The one after that, I believe, was Ganondorf. And Ganondorf came with a fabric cape. So it had a long robe on the back, long cape, and that was fabric. Then we had, I think it was just, off the top of my head, it would have been Link on Epona. Now that was slightly smaller scale. And technically, was it part of this? Part of the Link Online, we'll call it, right? And that really was that had no fabric on it. Now, Midna really.
There's also something else.
Oh, ZELDA, of course. Yeah, ZELDA. Now,
Yeah.
the very front of very front of her dress.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we also had the same thing for Ganon's puppet ZELDA.
Yeah.
I do apologise. I just missed out a couple of years of
There's another princess.
So, you know, in terms of fabric for... did I really say that it was technically always all going to be fabric? You know what? I don't think I did. I can't really remember. But that was a long time ago for sure. What I would say about that is that this dress, this is probably okay. You know, it definitely wouldn't have this kind of waviness, this kind of shape to it. And this is probably pretty straightforward to have this part, because it's kind of just hanging down, this front part, to have that hanging down in cloth. That shouldn't be any problem. But the problem would be, no ifs or buts, is this part over here, Chocks. This part on the top, this shape would have been nigh impossible to keep that shape without it looking like really flat and sagging down, and even with having sort of wires in it, it would have been really difficult. So I don't really feel like it should have been or had. I don't believe that we were sort of saying that they all had to come with cloth. To be honest with you, as I said, this has been in development for quite a while. So ultimately, so Jonathan's concept was how early on the concept was. Yeah, pretty early, I think. I didn't feel like compelled to use it. I sort of felt like by the time we got to ZELDA, we sort of just threw that in just to sort of maybe sort of account for a little bit of mixed media. But overall, if you look at ZELDA's beautiful dress, none of that's mixed media, and that's the reason why there wasn't any fabric for this either. I mean, it felt like it wasn't something that we sort of really grew to use over time. Even with our future items, in the products that we've launched since ZELDA and up to now, I don't really feel like we use much mixed media at all, really. Sort of fabrics.
In the ZELDA line?
No, in any line.
Well, King Red Lines.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's the cape. Oh, so that's the sail.
Sail, yeah.
Right. Thanks, Backdrops. But it's certainly the exception and not the norm, and therefore I didn't feel like it particularly had to be here for this line.
I think it turned out really well using resin for this piece.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, in order to keep that angle, to keep that shape, it really was important to be able to do that.
All right. Cool. Right. Next question from Pascal Machard. First, I'm so glad you made this goddess. How much did you love to work on this project? Also, any difficulties when you started her?
So, this really was something, I mean, any ZELDA project, always very excited. It's one of my favorite franchises, and to be able to work on this it's just an amazing, amazing gift, and such an honor to be able to do such a thing. And I loved a lot, loved working on her. You had a lot of involvement in this as well, going through
at the later
stage, and there was a lot of design and back and forth in terms of the paints and stuff like that, and the effects, and how to really bring something quite simple to life. Now, what do I mean by that is this. Okay, so let's talk about some of the difficulties. Well, let's talk a little bit about her pose. Okay. she's not very dynamic. She's standing there. She's not, how do I say it? She's not just standing there. Well, technically she is just standing there. Let's sort of compare and contrast to some other licenses, other items that we've done before, shall I say. As an example, we'll take for example Saitama from the One Punch Man line, right? He's pulled back and he's doing this big punch, very crazy movement, right? It's not a typical thing that you will see and have reference to on a day-to-day basis. You don't walk down the street and go, oh look, that guy's doing a massive one punch, right? Or think about Guts, right? He's jumping off a massive rock with a huge sword, and you go, oh, I'm walking to work, right? Oh look, there's some guy jumping off a rock with a massive sword. It's not something that you see every day. And something that you don't see every day, Chocks, becomes quite easy to replicate because you have no point of reference. You know about the uncanny valley? Do you know about that concept, Chocks? Where you have these robots that look really human-like, but they can't cross the uncanny valley, which basically means it looks creepy because they don't look quite human. They look human, but they don't quite
look natural.
It's not quite there, right? And you know there's something not quite right, okay? Now, the reason why I mentioned that, of course, is when you look at a pose that you see every day, if you just take someone standing there, you can see if someone standing there is looking naturally standing there instantly, or if they look stiff instantly. You can tell that just because you see it on a day-to-day basis. Somebody standing there. How are they standing? How is their posture? What is the body language? From someone standing there, you can tell a lot just by that. Do you know what I mean, Chocks?
Sure.
So when you have, as I was saying, for those sort of more crazy poses that you don't see on a day-to-day thing, you'll never see, it's not you'll never see, but it's very, very rare that you'll see these sort of crazy action poses. It's much harder to have a point of reference, and then you don't really have that problem about the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley is only there because you know what a human looks like. You know how a human should act. And when something is 99% there, it's not good enough. It's an uncanny valley, and it's really hard to cross it. Now that's the difficulty we felt with this pose. This pose was someone just standing there. Now how do you get someone just standing there not looking stiff, Chocks? That was the difficulty with this, because that really was actually quite tough. Just standing there is actually probably harder than doing the action poses, as I said, because there's no point of reference. So how do we have her standing there naturally? And it's all to do with the shape of the pose. Now, first of all, she's not just stiffly standing there, right? Despite her legs sort of semi together, right? But there's a kind of, can you see like almost like a bow in her body? Like a bow, where her legs are kind of going forwards, her hips are going forwards, but she's arching back. Can you see that sort of?
Sure, I see that, yeah.
And that really is to do with when you see her for the first time, she's turning around. She's like, oh, what is up, Lin? Right? You know, when she sees Link for the first time, she sits there, she turns her head. It's that sort of capturing that moment where she's turning backwards, and that's why if you look at her eyes, Chocks, they're not looking straight, are they? They're looking to her right. Because she's looking over her right shoulder. And that's the point. She's moving, and she's not just standing there looking straight, almost like a T-pose, no motion, no movement. There's subtle movement in the eyes, which is kind of like which is a natural thing to do. There's movement in the eyes. There's movement in the head, it's turning. There's movement in the body, where there are some slight movements in this bow shape with the hips, and all the joints are being used in the sense that there are movement on the hips, on the way that the back arches back, the way the shoulders are held. A lot of these things are considered, and it's something that we have to consider when making the pose. So that was actually really tough. I'm not gonna be that was really tough to get that balance. It's not gonna lie, it was quite a tough one, just to get her looking quite naturally there. And of course, if you look at her arm, it's not just straight going down, in the sense that there's a sort of a slight bend in the arm. Now, of course, you can simply go, oh right, the arms are bent. But it's not just the arms are bent, Chocks, because what we have to take into consideration when you bend the arms, the sculpt, what do we have to do about that? About the cape on top of that. It's not the moment that you move your arms, it influences the cape. Do you know what I mean, Chucks?
Yeah.
So you can see that if you look at the way this part of the cape is, can you see how it's sort of going backwards to follow the arm length? So you can almost like imagine if there was no cape here, that would be her arm going down there and then coming across again like that. And the same thing for that side as well. You see that? Sort of coming down and then across. And that's really something that has to be shown, not just in the arms, but the top part, the clothing itself, has to show that as well, to give that slight movement. And again, that's another reason why fabric would have been, it'd be quite difficult to, you've got to make sure that you've got to follow.
Both arms, her right arm is sticking further forward than her left arm. Her left arm is pulled back slightly more, so you can see the cloth, the way the cloth gets stretched back from her left side compared to her right side.
Absolutely, absolutely right, absolutely right. So you're absolutely right in terms of having to consider that, the arm positions and all that sort of stuff. It's definitely something to talk about. So, that was really about the pose. Again, it was talking again about what Silvio was talking about what kind of pose, and we knew what pose it needed to be. Nintendo requested this pose, and then we had to make sure that it looked lovely and subtle is not the word, but
elegantly.
Subtle is not the word. What I'm talking about, done in a way that is realistic and not looking stiff, flowing quite naturally. So we definitely felt that was something that we had to make sure we nailed, and I hope you agree that that's what we did. I think. So I think this is probably a great time to start talking a little bit about the sculpt details themselves, and then a bit about the paint. Talk a little bit about the base. Let's start from. Do you want to have a little go from the top down?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, the first thing that sticks out would be the actual crown piece, the jewelry part that goes from.
What an amazing design for a princess. Usually, you typically think of some sort of.
And that was kind of like exactly what you reminded me earlier in the documentary. We were saying about Hyrule Warriors, the crowns of different shapes.
So this is the Twilight Princess,
yeah. So yeah, definitely.
And there was difficulties with her hair. You can see it's really cute. What she got behind the back? Can you notice what's behind that?
Yeah, a little bow.
A little bow of hair. That I'm a little bit jealous.
But yeah, just having that piece down the middle, especially with the prongs that sticks out, and then you have the kind of the metallic wires going down, attached to the kind of the pendant type. Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. That's actually quite an intricate thing because they're all separate pieces, Chuck. And you've got to try and get it to be in the right position, right in the middle of the forehead. There was a lot of time spent back and forth with that. One of the things that was quite difficult that didn't quite work in 2D into 3D was actually that this little section here, right, the little prongs that go up and across, right? It's actually in the original artwork it goes up a little bit higher. But the difficulty is, Chuck, that if you look right down the middle, it actually you see the hood, and the reason why you see the hood is because the sort of call them like the two bits on the end, right? They connect in the middle, down the middle, right there, through the black of the hood. So we had to make it go through it. Originally, actually, I had it going longer, but it was going over the hood, and that was a mistake. Now, the difficulty we had was, did we go and raise that part up higher and keep the length up of these prongs higher up, but then raise the height of the hood? Or do we lower this down a little bit to make sure that we can get it looking realistic for this split down the middle here, to get that split down the middle there? In order to do that, we had to lower, just to shorten slightly the prongs of the of the hooky bits right there. Yeah. So that's ultimately we went for in the end, and otherwise it would have gone across, or we would have had to raise the height of the hood. Ultimately, that's what we sort of had. That was quite a challenge between 2D into 3D into physical. 3D into physical. that was pretty tough. But overall, the way that the jewelry hangs down and goes and connects, it's all the same in the game. Where the two hooks actually have the forehead jewelry. It connects by rings into that. That's how we've got that, in that there.
Yeah. So that's that bit, and then like I said, with the bow in the back, with the hair that wraps around to the fringes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wraps around across the top of the forehead.
Yeah.
So, and then that gives it an extra layer of hairs, because there seems to be top layer, middle layer, which will be the what do you call it?
Fringe.
The fringe, yeah.
Oh, sorry, the sideburns. The
sideburns
sideburns.
that goes across, and then you have the long hair that goes from the back down to the front.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which, if you remember it, when you're in Midna, it's like a hand.
And then one other difficult part to remember was the makeup. We spent a lot of time doing that. I think we had the Collectors Club involved in that.
I think the involving was my Midna waifu should not look like a with that shocking pink.
Yes, it's quite well, but I'm sure you guys remember that. Yeah. And then I mean, the shape of the body was pretty straightforward in that aspect. I think.
Let's focus a little bit more on the face. We spent a long time working on that in the sculpt stage. Then, of course, as in the painting as well. And one of the things that was tough was the eye shape and the eye with the makeup itself. Can you talk about a little about that makeup, sort of the different colours within there and the actual eyes themselves? What can you see there?
Oh, the eyes, you see yellows, reds, orange. Yeah, it's two different tones of red and orange.
And then you see this sort of purple eyeshadow.
Yeah,
but the purple eyeshadow and the eyebrows themselves, they're very unique looking eyebrows. What can you see about those eyebrow shocks? Now, if those are my eyebrows, normally I'd be plucking them if they came all the way down there, but it really works on her. Do you see one of the reasons why is if you sort of see it, it can be hard to see on there, but can you see the eyebrow shape is not just like a human's one? It's not like just a normal human sort of shape.
Sorry, are they? I'm just thinking, are they painted or sculpted? It looks like they're sculpted, but it's probably painted really well.
Painted really well.
Yeah.
And that is the thing about that is, can you see the angular shapes of them? It's not just like an arch.
Yeah.
It's not like a split McDonald's shape, right? It has these angles to it, which is really, really subtle, but really, really Midna-esque. And if you look at the eyebrows, they go all the way underneath, sort of
to the side of the nose.
Her sideburns, sort of that sort of area. The way it comes. Oh yeah,
Goes
this part it comes down, then all the way up through that. So
edge.
her makeup is very outer worldly, very, very close to reality, but not close to reality. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but it's still done in a beautifully done way. It's a testament to the design. And I got a shout out to the Collectors Club. They were definitely, when I first did it, I was like, yeah, check out these arches, like, duff. I mean, they're like, no, it's got. I was like, oh yeah, and all that sort of stuff. And that we spent a lot of time on that job. So before you go into the body, we could sort of
sorry about that.
Remember the pain that we went through going and getting that right. And can you even see those individual eyelashes shots?
Yeah,
can you see that?
individual eyelashes at the bottom that goes all the way across. Even the makeup for the eyes going around the edge of the eye.
All I can say, Chox, is you really are. I mean, we all are, right? Should we ever want to do a cosplay of Midna, we'll know exactly how to do that eye makeup.
It's burning now, memory now.
Put a message in the comments below if you want to see Chox dress up as Truth or Midna. You got the hat.
I just need some prongs.
Yeah, there you go.
Out,
There you go.
Yeah, and
Just keep on going down.
You guys know the flowy hair with the metal kind of
ornament on the thing, which sort of matches the same style as Imp Midna's.
And then the same pattern across her upper body. Alright. And then you get the
Before we go there, can I just bring your attention?
Where?
What can you see here, going down there?
Oh, you're talking about the belly button area.
That's right.
Yeah.
Can you see a vertical line there?
You see a vertical line there.
So that was something that was requested. That when we first made it, it wasn't quite obvious enough. We had to make it a little bit more obvious because it's supposed to be. She's not, she's not sporting a six-pack, but there is a separation in the abs. Right, there's a separation. That line when it goes down. Normally I paint mine on. Hey, can I look at my? But that is a sort of separation where you
From
have.
this angle, you can see there's like shadows.
Yeah.
Bouncing, but when you turn it this way, you can physically see the actual line.
Right.
So it casts off the shadows.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. So that was something that she's not sporting a six-pack, but she's got this sort of this shape to her stomach that takes that into account, and certainly that was something that Nintendo said this is an important point to make sure that was there. So we actually had to improve the model in the physical. Yeah. I went over my notes. This was a long time ago, but that was definitely something that we had to make sure that would have passed to pass that point.
Right. And then the standard familiar pattern, with the ticks across a midsection. Yeah, and then I believe we spent some time making sure the dress is sculpted correctly with the kind of the what's the thing that's tied around her waist?
With the sort of belt.
Yeah, the belt thing, and
it's almost like a what do you call it, like a sari, kind of sort of style, right?
I don't know. I don't wear dresses. I don't know what to call them.
But I mean, look at that sculpt in the way you like over here. This sort of. I mean, can we talk about that split? That is an amazing view where you can see the split all the way down and it goes all the way up. But one of the things about that hand is makes it really pretty natural and really subtle in the way. It's not just this is supposed to ooze blatant sex appeal. It's supposed to really be subtle in a classy way. She's all classy, right?
No peeking, guys.
She's all classy, and so we wanted to make sure that you had that going all the way down.
All the way down to her ankles.
Well, I mean, the split of the skirt goes all the way up, and so would it be a sari? I don't know. But she's wearing, as I said, this belt going across up here. It all sort of ties in with the same sort of sculpt style of the ornaments on the top of the part over here. Now we'll get to it, but of the ankle bracelets, you can sort of see it's the same sort of color, the same sort of styling. And that styling was there throughout the entirety of the Twilight Princess range. Xant in particular had that sort of style. He's obviously from the Twilight realm, of course, as well. The usurper, naughty boy Xant. So, really, it was a pleasure to sort of see these different shapes and sculpts come throughout there. Is there anything you wanna add in terms of the body itself? How about a bit of the hands? Can you notice the sort of if you have a look at maybe you can sort of
the individual fingers,
individual fingers, maybe with the knuckles and the fingernails.
Yeah, I mean they're not like close together. It has kind of a relaxed arms, like kind of draping.
So it's not like karate chop.
Yeah.
And you can see that you have the subtle sculpting of the fingernails.
Same with the toenails as well.
They're also known in Zelda as the Twilight manicure.
Okay. And I mean, it's not just the shape of the body itself. I mean, having the skirt that goes the inner section all the way around it individually sculpted. This is like the way these are flowed. This way it's curled around her thighs and her legs on this side as well. So you can see this here, as well, showing black on the camera, but you can see there's waviness to the inner skirt rather than just straight going down.
Yeah, you're right. And on the inside part as well, right?
Yeah. Because then you have the cape with the arms pulled back, pushing the cape back, and then this kind of angled back down, and it curls back in. That was tough. Yeah, and having all this print. Well, start off with the print on the back. That was tough. I mean, having the like these arrow shapes along, there's like kind of like tired threads.
It's not just the difficulty of making the design of this piece in terms of this is all done through some print work on there, but it was actually coming up with the artwork that matched and flowed with the actual shape
of the skull.
of the thing. We probably went through
ages on that.
There you go. That's another way of saying. That's another way of saying like 5 months. But
because if it's a straight clothing, right?
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
There's no. If it's straight, if it's ironed out or flat, then you.
So we had references from the game, and that was when you have it. It's completely flat. It's like it's completely flat, and that would have been easy peasy, but that's not what she looks like. It's got a really natural flow to it, and it was many times, many iterations of trying to get that right. And if you look at that, Chocks, because not only is her arms down, but her head is turned. So if you look at the way that that pattern comes up round, and if you look at it, doesn't just this part here comes, because if you look at the original artwork, it just goes straight up, easy peasy. But this one naturally curls around to go with the shape of the neck turn, and that was something that really was a lot of trial and error. No doubt in my mind there was a lot of trial and error with that.
Especially these arrows that goes on top of each bump that comes down.
So what we originally did with Chocks is we actually painted her black.
Yeah.
And then when we put these beautiful patterns on there, the print work on the patterns, we couldn't see it. Unless you really looked at it, you couldn't really see it. What you definitely couldn't see it was from a distance. But now this has this, I say that, I don't even know if you can see it, but it's really obvious when you look at it that there is this beautiful sort of tiling and pattern shape that has throughout the cape. You can sort of see how you have the sort of, it's almost like a very dark grey, Chocks.
Yeah.
That then has the darkness of the black lines throughout it, and it really creates this dynamic sort of feast for the eyes and contrast that you really have to sort of see it to appreciate it. Just the sort of details in there, don't you think, Chocks?
So the front is just, well, the back is just as important as the front. Yeah, you can spend hours looking at the front, but you can't just ignore the back.
Absolutely. I mean, the work is. I mean, of course, if you consider the back is really complicated, but we have that subtlety going throughout through the skirt area. Look at the print work and all throughout that.
All the way hidden around the back as well, all the way to the top. And that's just the cloak and the skirt, and then you've got the patterns that's inside the cloak as well. I remember spending tons of time on that as well.
And that's absolutely right, Chocks. The pattern on the inside also took us time, and you don't even see very much of it. Well, okay, don't get me wrong. If this is the optimum view, you don't actually see too much of it. But if you turn around, you start seeing this internal cape pattern on the inside. And the internal cape pattern, if you can see it, Chocks, you've got this green at the bottom, but actually at the top, can you see what happens there? What happens sort of as you go further up?
Yeah, it blends, it fades into
black.
Into black, yeah.
It fades into black. But let's just talk about the artwork pattern on the inside of the cape itself. Again, we had a difficulty in making sure that it fit perfectly, and many iterations on that. But here's the thing, Chocks. If you've bought, if you'd bought Zant, you would have noticed that he also has this sort of style of print work on his sleeves. Yep. He also had this sort of style, has this sort of print work on his style, on his sleeves. This green, though, one of the things about this is, if you look at that, she has. Can you show all the points that have this green on it? It has a very distinct green color.
The clothing, yeah?
Yeah.
Around the top, around the back here?
Yeah.
That goes all the way across her shoulder.
That's right.
And then coming back down in front of her, of draping over her
shoulders into
the arms, yeah. And then,
but as you said, the arms and...
Oh yeah, you're talking about this green as well, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
And the body print as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Both arms. The pattern that goes alongside the arms. And then, again, on this thigh here, that goes down there. Very distinctive, as you can see there. And then also the green inside the cloak, and also the front all the way around 360.
So there are tons of green accents all over the piece. And the great thing about this, Chocks, is we didn't just say it's just going to be green, but we actually made it glow in the dark. So you shine a light on it, you flip the lights off, and you can really sort of see how that looks for that. And it really sort of brings out the intricacies of it. and it really helps to give this really beautifully varied, subtle pattern that has all these different things. There's a real feast for the eyes. The blacks on the grey, right? The black lines on the grey, the greens, the brown pattern with the arrows. It's really a lot of details, and of course, when you come to the front, you have these beautiful red colours.
Yeah, the red makes it pop.
Yeah, huge pop on there.
And also the kind of a pinky purpley colour that goes around the trim.
And that's
edge.
Something that we forgot about.
Yeah, exactly. It goes around down there from the top, right at the top here.
Yeah.
It goes all the way down there, and then back up over the arms, and then back down here to around about this point here.
It's subtle changes that have really increased the accuracy compared to what it was before. And as I said before, it was all completely black. You couldn't see the patterns even though it was there. The patterns were really off, all that sort of stuff. And finally getting it to the point where we're here, we can submit it to Nintendo for approval, which we obviously got.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What a journey. She really kicked her butt for a long time. And good on her. She really challenged us. It's always the simple ones that you think is going to be straightforward. Actually, it's not, because it wasn't Chocks just about the pose, the concept, the sculpt. All that is, once you've figured it out, that's fine. But the physicality, a little bit of I told you about the head.
Yeah.
But this whole idea of having the hair on the outside and sort of seamlessly blending into this top, into a body, it's really tough, because you have the internal body with an outer cape that has to fit in perfectly, that then has even more details that connect to the inner body on the outside. Oh, what a nightmare. And it was really difficult, Jocks. I'm not gonna lie, that was really tough about the engineering aspect of getting that right. Really tough. Really tough. But hey, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and here we are, stronger in 2018.
That's good.
Yeah.
Right. What next?
Well, I think it's time to talk about the base.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so now the base itself, if you guys can have a look at that, it is actually a representation of the Twilight Mirror. So the Twilight Mirror, it's like a portal into the Twilight realm, and when it gets shattered, I mean, again, the scenes that you see her in, spoiler alert, you don't see her for very much, but the scenes that you see her with, she has the Twilight Mirror, and as I said, it's the portal between the two worlds, and between Hyrule and Twilight realm, and it was a very important part of her character. When we knew that we wanted to keep this sort of product within the range of the sort of stylings of the pieces of Zant, Ganondorf, Wolfling and Midna, Zelda and Ganon's puppet Zelda. It's very quite minimalistic, but important aspects from the game. That's why we have here all of this hand painted. Really tough to hand paint something like these with these lines like that. These are all painted in a way that it is really tough to do, individually done. And that's not printing, Chocks, that's all hand painted. So that's really intricate and takes a lot of time to get done. This is a representation in a beautiful, creative way to represent the Twilight Mirror, which of course is just almost like a shield in a shape. It's just like a shield, but we didn't just want a big dish. It didn't want just to be like that. We wanted to do it in a nice 3D way that it represents the Twilight Mirror, but it's actually a base. So you can immediately see, right, that's a Twilight Mirror, and you can see these beautiful sort of patterns, engravings going through that.
Yeah, guys, these are you can actually feel it. These are sculpted in, not printed on.
Right, and this one here, as I said,
you can feel the grooves.
You can feel the grooves on that, and having this line going through here. These again, all these symbols going through there. I guess it's Hylian script, or it might be Twilight script. Let us know in the comments. This will better represent Twilight Mirror. And of course, it's not just patterns on the top; it's patterns on the sides here,
on the side of it,
and the patterns in the middle, and the patterns on the bottom. Beautiful.
And then also in the middle of this kind of
on the top as well.
It's kind of like dipped inwards. see patterns.
For sure. So, you know, we really wanted to incorporate the twilight mirror as part of the concept of the base itself. So that's really what we wanted to do for that, and it was good to be able to have this piece have a, you know, because it's such an important part of her scenes, of which there are 2 or 3, right? To have that there as a representation of that. So yeah, Chocks, that is pretty much it when it comes towards the Midna piece. Now this, of course, is the regular version. Chocks, I wanted to just say perhaps we should give some measurements based on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, this is a piece that you want to have in your collection.
Yeah.
You want to find the perfect size for it. All right, let's do this. I'll just do it with the can test.
Can test first, yeah.
So pretty straightforward. 1, 2, 3. Just under 4. Just a shade under 4.
Yeah.
So that comes up to about here. Now these are 330 ml cans. For our American family, that's 355 for you guys, so yours will be slightly bigger, but you have a better idea of how it looks like compared to a typical can. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Over to you, Chuck.
All right then. Okay, for the height from the bottom of the base to the tip of a cloak, I have that 17 inches tall, so that's 43 centimeters, and from the width, and the width obviously is going to be from the edge of the base to this, from the back of the base. I have that at 9 inches, which is 23 centimeters, and the depth is going to be the same on this side to that side, so that's going to be 9 inches, because right now there's nothing overflowing past the
What
base.
a compact piece for once, yeah?
Yes, for once it's like, whoa, this is not our normal self, like
this
for the
is-
last couple of launches, but
Yeah.
this one's, it's very nice and neat.
Really, quite a lot of impact for the space it takes up, which is you know, it's great.
And if you guys want to know the base itself on its own, so from just the base its own, I have that at 2 inches high, so that's around about 5 centimeters. So that makes her body itself 15 inches, which will be 38 centimeters.
So that's quite interesting because, you know, she's part of the Twilight Princess range, and you know, this is 1/4 scale sizing. Now Ganondorf was huge at 20 plus inches, and we made sure that Ganondorf's size and Zelda's size and, you know, Xanth's size, etc., Wolflink and Midna's size, you know, in Midna I'm talking about, they all matched up.
Right.
So her size was governed from the moment that we'd made Ganondorf and Xanth, that she would be in the right scale of that. And we will, you know, we have a Xanth which we'll bring in a little bit later on and show a bit of a size comparison, Chunks, and so you can have a better idea of the scales on that.
And the weight for her would be at 2.9 kg.
So pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
pretty straightforward. Cool. All right, Chunks, let's do some shout-outs.
All right then. Shout outs or on you.
What are they, Chunks?
Yes. So shout outs basically. All right, guys. So when we said hit us up in the Collectors Club for any questions with regards to launches, well, in that same thread, randomly, I will ask you guys to reply to a certain comment. The first 10 guys that reply to that comment will get a shout out from Alex. So if you have a question in that thread, make sure you bookmark that thread, so in case if I start posting a comment, you'll get a notification, and then boom, jump straight in there for your shout out.
Right now.
Right.
Shout out to Gerardo Oliveras, how's it going, mate? Ryan Rossello, how's it going, mate? Lovely admin. Ricky Underdog Powell, how's it going? Shout out to Brendan Rossello, part of the Rossello brothers. Silvio Latuada, who got a shout out in the actual questions themselves.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tonya Nye. Christopher Thomas in the house, how's it going? You've got Derek Baker, he's one of the oldest school list of collectors of Zelda stuff that I can remember back in the day. Yeah.
Cool.
A lot of spoiler of the year, so thank you for
Did
that.
he ask for truth on Midna?
He did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there you go. Got like 10 emails from him. Austin Paul, and shout out to Joseph Grigg, I should say. So shout out, boom, done.
Nice one. Nice one.
Alright, Choc, so this is the regular version as we talked a little bit about that. In
Okay.
case you don't know, we actually offer typically a regular and an exclusive version. Now, what this is, if you would have noticed as this has been spinning around on the base, is there is actually a little, can you see what that is, Choc, over there?
Yeah. Are you pointing the button?
That's right, there's a little button there.
Yeah. There's a circular button.
That's right, and then if you look to this bit over here,
Yeah. Yeah, I can see.
yeah, over
Yeah.
here,
Right.
and over there.
There's a port, which would be a USB port. Yeah, so you can plug your USB cable into another power source. And then next to that will be a kind of an indicator. It's an LED indicator. So if there's a connection there and if there's power going through, then the light will show up.
Why would you do that? Boom! Check it out, guys. That is the exclusive version. We can try that again, turn that off. And remember, this is like studio lighting here, it's super bright. We'll have some overlays for you. This is the exclusive version. Boom! There you go. So let's get Jeffrey to run some overlays now. What I really wanted you to also look at, as you're looking, of course, as the brightness of the hair, Chocs, is when Jeffrey, as he's doing those overlays now, you'll be able to also pay attention to that glow in the dark greens that we were talking about and how it all accumulates together. Now, again, this is a studio lighting here, really bright. In the dark room, when the lights are off, after you've turned on, powered up the glow in the dark, which obviously, as you know, it needs to have a bright light on it first to absorb the light and then to reflect it. You should be able to see them from those overlays that Jeffrey, I'm sure, would have already put on there. But yeah, you know, Chocs, she has a, you know, this is the exclusive version. Now, the question is, why does her hair light up when you compare it to actually in the actual game itself? Well, you know, when you look at Imp Midna, the exclusive version of, we'll say, Imp Midna on Wolflink, Wolflink and Midna, her hair in Wolflink the Midna on that also lit up for the exclusive version. So it really made sense for us to have that match, to be honest with you. And also, you know, when she has fights, the hair lights up when she's attacking people, when she was in imp form. So it kind of made sense just to give this beautiful glowing effect to the hair. So what do you think, Josh? You can sort of see the way that comes out. It has this brightness that goes, you know, throughout it.
Yeah. So from the side piece, the lights are shining through, especially the top as well. She has some hair sticking out of the top as well, not just from the side or the front. And then it goes all the way down through the full length of her hair down to the what do you call it?
Ponytail.
Yeah, it's like a reverse ponytail kind of thing.
It's like her original hand. It turns into a kind of hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Chocs, the exclusive version, it's pretty straightforward. It comes with a rechargeable battery.
Yeah. Well, basically the regular version will be the same base, but without any electronics. So it'll be the same base. You still have the glow in the dark effect on her body and the cape, I believe.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right. So that's the regular version. With the exclusive version, you have the additions from the regular version, the glow in the dark, and also you will have a removable, rechargeable battery within the unit, and then light up hair.
Absolutely. And Chocs, I have to ask the question: is there any differences on the size, height, weight, all that sort of stuff? The answer is no.
No. Maybe a little bit heavier with the battery. I don't know.
Right, but nothing that's going to break your shelf.
Nothing. So exactly the same height, width, and depth.
Okay, do you want to...
and USB cables will be provided as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's actually a question, Chocs.
Yes. Oh, right. Okay. Last but not least, Joseph Grigg. What was the reason for the choice difference between the regular and exclusive?
Well, I already answered that question, so...
Rewind 2 minutes before and you get your answer there, Joseph.
Absolutely. We did actually write it down. So yeah, you know, she really looks stunning, certainly enhanced in the twilight of the night, you know, if you turn off the light, to really sort of get the strength of the LEDs coming through there.
And if you've been here with us from day one with the Twilight Princess line, this is another piece added to that line, and the line has gone quite deep. If you're thinking about it, off the top of my head, this might be the 7th piece. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but you know, if you count the Puppet Zelda and then the Zelda, and then you know, going trace your steps back, this is quite a long line. So hopefully, will there be more?
Hopefully, if the support's there, we'll love to keep on going. We really like.
Now that we have the Collectors Club and more Zelda fans coming in, hopefully you guys will.
It's one of my personal favourites. I know yours is A Link to the Past.
A Link to the Past, which we haven't done, but hopefully soon, one day. Yeah,
Shout out, absolutely.
And Wind Waker as well. So so
we've had the good fortune to be able to work on that.
Hopefully, we can continue to make new Zelda games that we do with our Breath of the Wild. And also, we like to trace back into the classics as well. So, yeah.
Great. All right. Is that about it, Chocks?
Yeah, maybe.
Wait, I think there's one more thing, Chocks.
Did I say maybe?
Oh yeah.
What's the one thing then?
Well, in 3, 2, 1, boom!
So what do we have here?
This is the Twilight Princess True Form Midna Definitive Edition.
Alright, Definitive Edition.
So this is something that is really quite new for us, Chocks. And check it out, we have this beautiful case here with which to display your True Form Midna in the most definitive way. Hence the Definitive Edition.
All protected.
All protected. Now, you know, where did this come from? Well, that's an interesting thing because can you remember way back when we first set up the office and then we started making these cabinets?
Yeah.
And it was bespoke cabinets for, you know, our upcoming samples, etc., etc. And there's quite a few people, and one of the topics is, hey guys, do you have any cases that you could recommend or what have you? And some people are, you know, have different choices, but actually the choices are rather limited, to be honest with you.
Still asking us, why you guys do customs, like first for displays?
Well, I mean, that was absolutely right, and that's more of the sort of the bigger style ones, but there have been people also asking about possibly protective cases themselves. And you know what, Chocks? We talked about how Midna really is quite a compact piece. 9 inches, I believe you said, in terms of the foot space.
The depth and width is 9 inches.
And I thought this would be almost the perfect piece to really try that out. We wanted to just try something else, something a little bit new. You know, we actually have no idea, do people, you know, what people would think of this. Something we wanted to try. And, you know, we understand that if you wanted just to have the Midna herself, no problem. There's a regular option, Chocks.
Yep.
There's an exclusive option, of course. If you wanted to have this protective case that's bespoke specifically for her, then of course you have this definitive edition, Chocks. You know, there's no addition to the actual piece apart from, you know, an extra thick base on the bottom. But, you know, in terms of overall, the piece that you see, certainly of Midna herself, it's exactly the same as the regular or the exclusive. So the definitive edition really is all about this case, Chocks. It's really all about this case. Now, this is no ordinary case. There are some things that I want to sort of, you know, show you. First of all, why don't we give it a bit of a spin in the case. So check that out.
Guys, this is still sitting on the turntable, so the case itself, the full case itself, does not spin on its own. Just to highlight that out. I mean, it looks impressive right here. Look at the reflections bouncing off this.
Yeah, that's actually.
Oh, there's 2 Alexes there. Right, so I've just seen that. So hopefully we haven't reviewed anything in this room.
Oh my God,
we haven't thought about this.
We haven't thought about this.
This is the first time spinning on this turntable that True Form Midna was sitting on top of. So you guys can see, this is like 360, every side you can still see True Form Midna.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean,
absolutely. Now I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about, you're right, the size. There's a couple of things I really wanted to talk about with regards to, because Chocks, this is our first ever case, there are some certain things that we are still a little bit work in progress, to be honest with you. Yeah, I would say that. So guys, this is not quite the final form. There are some certain differences that we will be making. For example, right now, the way we've done this, this is a acrylic pieces here that have been molded together, so it's actually one piece. Now that's actually not what the final one will be like, and the reason for that, Chalk, is shipping is actually it doesn't make sense to have them separate like that and molded down the line. So that's one thing. We are planning to change that to a type of, we believe so, are going to be a type of glass, and it's going to be in 4 pieces that you individually place 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the cover. And we need to really rework the construction, the engineering of that. But
make sure there's slots in there, one piece at a time, it fits in together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some things that we need to tweak for that, Chocks, and that really is still a work in progress. So we appreciate your patience that we don't actually have the final specification at this stage. We do apologize about that, but it's going to look, relatively similar to this. There may be some slight changes with the height of the base itself coming up, and therefore if we slightly lower down the height of the actual base, of the extra thickness of the base, Chocks, this will come down very slightly to match that kind of height. I feel like this height is really perfect in terms of the height above Midna's hat up to the top.
Yeah, you gotta have some spacing between the actual statue itself and the top.
Right, you don't want it to be too cramped, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I like the way she's been risen off the top, so she's sort of more in the middle of encasing this entire box into the entire display case. But the thing is, Chocks, if we slightly lower this, maybe by a half or something, we're not 100% sure. This will come down in accordance as well. It's one of the sort of things that we wanted to.
So the width and the depth. So the width and the depth of the case itself is perfectly balanced. To me, it seems like
the distance between the sides of the base.
Yeah.
As you said, we've already measured that. That's 9 inches across, right? That's a nice sort of placement for that.
So like between the actual statue before, from the statue to the actual glass itself, there's roughly about, I don't know, give or take, 2.5-3 inches of space there. So you don't want to have it too close to the glass, the display itself, the glass displays sides.
Yeah.
And just to want to recap on the pros and cons with the acrylic and glass. Sure, acrylic is going to be lighter, but it's kind of prone to scratches and it's prone to dust, dust magnet basically. With glass, though, although it's heavier, the glass is much clearer, and you won't have too much reflection. It's going to be much easier to stare at your statue, as in display purposes. Personal preferences is going to be glass for me.
We just got to make sure it's shipped in a safe way.
In a safe way, yeah.
Of course. And that's, look, guys, I'm going to be honest, this is our first time, so we really are a little bit experimenting, as you said, Chogs, and so we do apologize, and we hope that you can understand that there will be some changes. It may need to do with, as I said, separations of the pieces, so it can be shipped more easily, and also the construction of that to take into account that it's got a slot in, because right now there's nothing that holds this in place if they were individual pieces, because this is molded together right now.
And it just goes over the top.
Yeah, and that was a massive box. It was like a mini fridge because of this issue. Now, of course, if you separated them
inside.
Right.
Yeah,
if you separated them inside, then of course it would be much better. So, sorry guys, it's a little bit of a work in progress, but you can get a sort of subtle idea about that. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is if we go back to the front of the case, which is over here, we haven't got to this stage yet, but we would like to have, maybe a subtle etching. Right now, this is a kind of matte finish.
Yeah.
Charles is actually to have a little bit of an etching, maybe the F4F logo here, the True for Midna written at the top. Something not, hey, it's massively bright colors. It's actually subtle that you can sort of see it. Very similar to how we do art prints, and you have a little bit of a gloss to it.
Yeah.
Something like that. We need to sort of figure out exactly how we're going to do it, but there will be some scope to add a little bit of here, a little bit of there. And likewise,
to give that official stamping on it as well.
Right. And likewise, in terms of this material, we're still not 100% sure. We believe it's going to be acrylic, but there might. I'm talking about the black part, but we're not 100% sure just yet. There are lots of things that we need to really consider, and so we do appreciate your patience in that regard. While we come back a little bit later on, Chalks, with the final specifications. Of course, you will be kept
updated on the website and in the Collectors Club as well.
Absolutely.
I got to say, if this was to be glass, trust me, glass is a much better quality for display cases for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say, Chocks, is if we just have a bit of a spin on this. I mean, it's obviously pretty straightforward that we have at the top there we have these micro USB slots here and an indicator there, micro USB slot here, an indicator here, and of course these little buttons over here. Now, Chocks, no prizes. Sorry, mate. No prizes for guessing what that means.
Right.
It's kind of obvious. We have,
but we'll still explain it.
Yeah. Okay. We have these lights.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let me take it to the front. That's the phrasing.
Yeah.
Of course,
How
this
many,
is the front.
How many are there?
So we have 4 on the top, Chocks.
4 on the top.
4 on the bottom.
Okay. So.
And one of the things about these lights is they can actually wiggle. They can angle and they can very slightly turn a little bit left and right in terms of the angle of it. But of course, that's what it's all about in terms of having that. So no war points or anything like that for guessing. Of course, that the buttons and the micro USB is really for those lights. But yeah, guys. So that's really what the definitive edition is all about. Oh wait, actually, there's a little something extra, Chocks.
There's a little something extra.
This would be the regular version, and if this was just the regular version, done, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Except for, can you really have to ask you the question, Chocks? Can you really have the definitive edition without having the exclusive version, which obviously has a light up here?
Right. Okay.
Could you really be standard version in there and still be called definitive edition? I think the answer is definitively no. You can't do that. So we are poised with the question: how do we deal with that? Well, Chocks, can you just go in there and turn on? Just if you wouldn't mind, just disassemble everything, Chocks.
Right, yeah. And then I'm going there and I'm going to turn this on, I'm going to turn that on, turn that on, turn all these on.
And also turn on her, can you please turn on
her exclusive.
Yeah, please.
With the button.
I'll just...
With the button that's inside.
Yeah, you take off the top, you got to reach down, make sure you get a ladder to get, unless of course you can then obviously, when you take this off, if they're going to be 4 separate panes of glass, make sure they don't...
Right.
But of course...
But
there may be an alternative to that.
But there's something over there.
You mean this thing over here, Chocks?
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
what? And that over there?
Yeah. It's hard to see in the camera, but there's something very bumpy over there.
Boom! Check it out, guys. Her hair lights up just like that. Internally created by this remote control. Her hair is now, and I'm turning this here, has come on based on that. So you don't need to worry about separating it out, opening it up. That would have been an absolute nightmare. And just to sort of do that, Chocks, that would have been an absolute nightmare.
So, you can sit from a distance, just turn the on button on the remote control, and then the light turns on.
Of the hair?
The hair.
Now, if you look closely at those 4 lights, Chocks, boom! Did it work?
No, you're gonna be like I said, you're gonna be pointing correctly. Yeah,
there you go. You're right. Absolutely right. Okay. Yeah. So you've got to point at them both, and then you can turn on.
Ideally, because you're from a distance. So if you point, because you're from an awkward angle, of course. But if you're from a distance, you press the button a second time, all 8 lights will turn on. But
if you manage to hit them both at once.
But how come these lights are like purple?
So that's an interesting thing. And while I'm doing that, do you want to just pass that over for a second? If we get a little bit of a... Whilst we're talking, I'm going to turn that around over here. Give that a little bit of a charge. All right, cool. Right, and then the purple, if you know about your clubbing, days, raving. That really is about UV black lights. Now, of course, there are other reasons for using that, but we won't go into that. But, you know, in terms of your crime scene investigatives, you know, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Searching for evidence.
Yeah, right. Well, Chocks, here's the interesting thing.
Right.
The lights themselves are giving a subtle glow to Midna. Right now we're in really bright studio lights again.
Yeah.
And one of the things is we actually painted the Twilight Mirror base, and this goes for both the regular and the exclusive, and of course the definitive version, with UV reflective orange that really glows with the use of the black lights or the UV lights directly onto it. And we wanted to create these lights on the bottom. They're actually more aimed towards the base itself.
Yep.
And the top is actually more aimed towards the
kind of top surface of the base, right?
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So you can see then that's how we've you've got that lighting in there. So let's pop that out. Give that a bit of a spin. Now, Jeffrey should have already overlaid some stuff, I believe, so you can really sort of see how that works.
Because we're in bright studio lights,
yeah,
it's going to be very hard to. It has to be kind of a pitch black environment to really see the kind of fluorescent.
And it also gives it that kind of Twilight Realm kind of feeling.
So, guys, if you imagine that on the regular version, there will be no lights. The exclusive, the hairpiece will be lit up. But with the definitive edition, all that is all lit up. The hairpiece with the UV lights from the base, side of the base, the top of the base, and not forgetting the glow in the dark on the body and the actual cloak itself.
Yeah, I think the green really picks up on it as well.
Yeah.
And of course, as you know from earlier on, there's tons of accents of green throughout the whole thing. So you know, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to see it in its full glory in the dark. But Chocks, you know what, Chocks? The thing about this is that, you know, it looks great from the front.
Yeah.
But you know as well as I do, when you turn that, she looks really, really great. We talked about the back pattern, right? And it would be a shame that you couldn't see that.
Well, first of all, it's going to be, because we're doing a documentary here, this cabinet display is sat on the turntable, and at home, if you're in a real environment, your whole display case is going to be
sort of fixed.
Static, fixed, static on your dresser, your cupboard, or your centerpiece, and I mean, right now she's facing forward, which we said earlier on is the perfect snapshot from the game. But if you had the regular and exclusive version, sure, you can just pick it up, turn it around, and I can see all that beautiful pattern on the back of her dress. But do I have to climb back inside and
well, this is
do this myself?
This is the definitive edition.
That's a lot of hard work.
We went all the way, guys. Check it out. So there she is in her full glory. The top part of the Twilight Mirror base. Turning. Motorized turning. So you do not need to have to worry the fact that you can't. Imagine she sort of fitted against a wall or something like that. It's going to be hard for you to sort of get behind there and sort of see. No problems when you actually have her just rotating inside, and that really is
perfect for those guys that have pets and children in the house. It's like no more no more jumping onto my statue.
All the cats are going to be really, really disappointed.
They'll probably be mesmerized just sitting there and just looking at her.
I gotta say, Jocks, we conceptualized that, and I'm really happy with at least the concept. Some fine tuning for the base that we need. For the case that we need to do.
Overall aesthetics and the materials.
For sure. But in terms of, let's have some UV lights highlighting that on the base, and likewise having the turntable and the LED for the hair all controlled by remote control. I really wanted to have that. We're sort of sitting there looking at her. And of course, if you wanted to spin her all the way around, you spin
You spin.
She's actually not moving. Hold on, if I turn her the other way, if I can actually change the angle of this, there you go. So she's turning that. This is like super speed turning her. So if I actually get, what I can do is get her turning this way. I'm having too much fun. This base here is turning. So if I turn her, that's the fixed angle there. And there you go, guys. You can see that. I'm having a bit too much fun with that. And then if we just stop that,
turntable
the turntable itself,
yeah.
then she, of course, you will see her continue to turn there, and that's how you can see her throughout the whole thing. Quite a lot of remote controls here today, Chocks.
Yes. So,
Wow. I'm really happy, Chocks. 2015. Here we are, 3 years later, or 2.5 years later, and that really is where we're at. Now, of course, there are times to, of course, actually stop her. So when we get her back into that perfect angle, which is just about here. Okay. Do I hear the thing? What?
Did you press stop?
Am I the actual? Oh, hold on. This is the.
This is the
front.
Back, yes. That's why we need a logo there and the front, so we know where is the front.
You're exactly right. Okay. She'll take a sweet time coming around. We'll wait for her. We've waited 2.5 years for her. We'll wait for a little bit longer. It's like, hey, why isn't that working? All right, here she comes. Again, that moment that you see her.
Yep.
Looking over the shoulder. Done.
Off button. Just
off
press
button.
once.
There you go. She's completely off. And again, of course,
you want to make sure if you're from a distance, when you press off, both will, the top and the bottom will turn off.
There you go.
Yeah. So basically, I might as well do
of course,
a quick measurement here, because
of course,
give or take, I mean, the depth and the width should be pretty much finalized here.
Yeah.
But if there's any changes, we will update that on the website and in the Collectors Club as well. So for the depth, I have that at 16 inches, which is around about 41 centimeters.
So that will be the same on this side as well?
I hope it's exactly like a square shape. Yep. So 16 inches for the width, which is again 41 centimeters.
Now we'll give you the height, but it is subject to change.
Subject to change with the height because of the base that we've explained earlier. But just on here in the video.
Yeah, just for a bit of idea. I don't think we changed much. Maybe come down a few inches if we were going to do that.
A few inches is going to make a big difference, but it's still a good reference to go by. So right now I have it about 25.5 inches in height. So that's about 65 centimeters. So if you imagine the base a little bit about an inch or two shortened down, then you can just imagine an inch or two further down from the measurements I just given earlier.
Yeah.
And as for the weight, we will
come back
with more information because of the glass.
All of that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I think it's better just to sort of pause that conversation with regards to the weights on that, and we will come back with something a little bit more definitive, shall I say?
Yes. That's right.
Well, Chocks, that was a long one. There was a lot to talk about. For something so straightforward, something so subtle, you know, in terms of the overall, you know, the pose. That's certainly what she looks like. What I want to do though, Chocks, is give a quick overview of Truthful Midna with the others in the range.
Sure.
Okay? So why don't we do that in 3, 2, 1, boom! Check it out, guys. You obviously have Truthful Midna right here in the middle, of course, and in front of you, Chocks, who we have?
I have Zan.
Yep, Zan over here on the left, over here, and on my side on the right, we obviously have Wolfling and Midna right here. And it's really lovely to see her in amongst the others for this continuity, to have her right there. It's got that sense that they're all perfectly scaled. And of course, if you remember, ZELDA is actually a little bit shorter than Truthful Midna, and Ganondorf is actually bigger than Zan. And if you look at them all together in cutscenes, they are within the same scale. And if you actually look at Imp Midna and Truthful Midna, you can really get the sense of the scale. And we really had to go there in the 3D. We manipulated her body from a sitting position to a standing position, made those legs straight, put them side by side, consider the size of Zan. I can remember when we first made the Imp Midna, there's a scene where she's right up against Zan's head, because of course if you haven't played the game, Zant basically usurps. He's known as the usurper. Usurps Midna from her throne, and that's obviously condemns her into becoming this imp version. And beautifully, she turns back to her true form, this beautiful true form version of her. Now, Chocks, one of the things that we said that we wanted to make sure between the two, and maybe what I'll do is I'll give Midna, she is the star of the show in terms of true form Midna, to make sure that their skin tones matched. And we were quite far down the line before, unfortunately, where we found out that actually Midna's skin tone was wrong. She was a little bit too blue. And this one is a little bit more pale green, and you can see that they are matching much more consistently with the body skin tone between the two. The other thing, of course, is that we talked a little bit about those greens. When you have the greens of Zant that has this glow in the dark effect to it, the greens going throughout the body and the clothing of Midna herself, and of course that same patterns and that effect going through, you know, the imp Midna, shall we say, right? So you can definitely see the way that comes through. And again, on this side, you can see that effect going down her arm, and for the other arm, and of course her legs as well. You can obviously see it going down her split leg, down the split skirt from that over there. So you know what, Chocks, that really is a consistent line. They look great together, all in the piece. It would really make for an epic collection. She makes an epic piece on her own. With the others as well, if you're really fortunate enough to be able to create this collection as well, I mean, that's it. They look, hopefully you agree, it looks really, really, really good. And again, other consistencies, the color of the silver and the weathering effect of Midna, Wolflink and Midna, Zant, and then the color of her, you know, her crown. That sort of colors there going through her bracelet and her, you know, her belt. And you know and it's the same thing for, she has this one over here. If you look at Midna, she has this one over here. There you can see it over there, and you know, that really sort of ties it all together. Consistency, making sure they all look good together, you know, accordingly. Whew. So there you go, Chocks.
Yes.
That's anything you want to add to that, because it's been quite a long one, I gotta say.
But it's definitely worth the extra time to go through this one, because it's been long in the making. So
it's been long in the making. It really deserved that for sure. Whew. All right, Chocks. If that's another one wrapped up, then that's another one wrapped up.
Right.
Boom. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Chuckles.
F4F is love.
F4F is life.
And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Later.